Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program is about to begin. At this time, we ask that you turn off all cellular devices. Thank you.
I think the greatest way to give of yourself and what you have to offer is by teaching. We're trying to explain that the worst thing that can happen to a human being is to have to take the life of another human being. You will never, ever forget it.
How do you teach character? What's the best way to teach character education to young people today? Quite frankly, you can put up a lesson plan and write anything out. That doesn't mean it's going to connect to kids.
He had to fight his way. I mean, he fights for all of us to have the freedom. So freedom has a special taste, meant a lot to me when I read that.
Had you ever thought about that before?
No, not at all.
I think the whole idea of the Medal of Honor is for the purpose of teaching everybody that he's got a role to play in his community. So it's important to know the lengths to which some people are willing to go because they feel so strongly about their fellow man.
I did not know a lot about the Medal of Honor. I went to a dinner at the Ambassador Hotel and Jack Jacobs was the speaker and he introduced us to the concept of Medal of Honor, and I thought the potential for the kids to see these people as heroes was truly something that we could implement in the schools in a positive way.
We were asked as a team of educators to write lessons based on video interviews with living recipients of the Medal of Honor. So we were looking at courage and commitment, sacrifice, integrity, citizenship, and patriotism. And those are fundamental values for I think, everyone in our nation.
We worked hard at doing what we do as teachers, and that's write lessons. And we worked hard at finding ways to take recipient stories and turn them into classroom materials, some ways that teachers could use them to impact their students.
This was something you never forget. I have a debt to pay. So I made a promise. If I ever go to America, I'm gonna become a G.I. Joe.
I wish these were the stars of baseball cards in this country. I wish kids grew up knowing these recipients' stats. I wish they knew where they were all born and what wars they fought in and what they're known for, as they do athletes and rock stars. We're trying to spread the word about what kinds of citizens these are. We're trying to spread the word that these qualities will help you in many ways. So we have this curriculum. We had a theory that you could teach these values. You could use these recipients as a teaching tool. And before long, they'd also end up studying war. They'd study world history and the clash of great powers. What a concept.
The vignettes connect specifically with the students. The way that the vignettes are done, they can see soldiers or Marines or airmen who are their age, and the values that the recipients talk about resonate with kids.
Each Medal of Honor recipient is just like a regular person. You take away things that they've been through and their personal experiences and you apply them to your own life. And it's like, once you can do that, it's just you and that person make a connection.
When you take a look at what the Medal of Honor recipients have done, they've dug deep down into themselves at a certain moment in time and done something very courageous and very selfless to protect their comrades. The deeds that they performed translate into the ability of the ordinary person to believe in him or herself.
What did he do that was really extraordinary to y'all? Brandon?
He ran through a severe firing to help the wounded. Also, even though he was hurt, he kept moving to help people.
All right.
Their stories are very surprising that someone could go to that deep of a level and, risking their own lives for someone else.
These guys really embody a lot of characteristics that we want to pass on to our students. I've dealt with students who have personal struggles that I could barely comprehend and barely get my head wrapped around what they have to deal with. But then you show one of these videos and, plug this into a class, it's phenomenal.
It's about defining your heroes. It's about character. I mean, you just look at the reaction in the classroom from these young people or what they say to you and realize it's profound. I mean, it's absolutely changing young people's lives.
Can you share a little bit about what you think middle school kids would get from this video?
That's what we started out with, that quote, you never learn to serve until you realize there's something more important than yourself.
To be honest, I came here today not really knowing what to expect. I didn't, have any expectations that it was something that I necessarily would be able to bring back into my classroom. But I watched those videos today, and I was moved and touched by it, and I thought my students will be as well.
I remember seeing on one of the tapes, after they taught this curriculum to a selected group of kids in Erie, really cynical high school kids, saying to the camera, "I didn't know this. Why didn't I know this?" I get teary-eyed about it, but if you can get that notion to that kid, you can really make a difference. We won't be able to tell what the full positive effect will be until the generation who receives the education will have matured. But instinct tells me, my intuition says, that if you have two choices, education or no education, you're going to be a lot better with education.
Good morning. My name is Tony Penny, and I'm the director of the Walter and Lenore Annenberg Presidential Learning Center here at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation. And before we get started, I wanted to recognize a few of our special guests who are in the audience or will soon be in the audience. We are expecting to join us from the state of Texas, the chairman of the House Committee on Homeland Security, Congressman Michael McCall, and his wife, Linda. And in the audience from the Medal of Honor Foundation, representing their board, we have board members Bruce Brereton and Don Schwartz. Thank you so much for coming out today. The executive director of the Reagan Foundation, Mr. John Highbush, thank you for coming today. The director of the Reagan Presidential Library, Mr. Duke Blackwood, thank you. And I'd like to thank the entire education team at the Medal of Honor Foundation, including Jennifer Lennon and the whole team that's here. The partnership we've had over the last couple of years to bring these outstanding stories and your outstanding character development program, both to students here in Southern California and across the country. Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank the Woods Clisons Foundation, whose support enables us to broadcast today's event into classrooms across the country over the internet. So thank you very much. And one final and very important thank you. If we have any members of the armed services, veterans or active duty, please stand. We'd like to thank you for your service to our country. In honor of our special guest today, and all the men and women, both veterans and active duty, who've put themselves in harm's way to preserve and protect our freedoms, please join me in standing for the national anthem and the presentation of the colors. Our color guard today is the Santa Clarita Valley Young Marines, commanded by Tim Stratton. And after the presentation of the colors, the national anthem will be sung by the Reagan Foundation's own Miss Ashley Sundstrom.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed mask gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Thank you.
Thank you, and please be seated. Thank you, Ashley. It's amazing. Here at the Reagan Foundation, our primary mission is to continue the legacy and share the principles of our 40th president. This is a mission I can assure you we take quite seriously. In the education department, we primarily concern ourselves with engaging the future leaders of America with the goal of developing proactive, educated, informed, and conscientious citizens and leaders. In his farewell address to the nation, President Reagan said, "An informed patriotism is what we want. And are we doing a good enough job teaching our children what America is and what she represents in the long history of the world?" Those of us who are over 35 or so years of age grew up in a different America. We were taught very directly what it means to be an American. And we absorbed, almost in the air, a love of country and an appreciation of its institutions. We've got to do a better job of getting across that America is freedom. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of enterprise. And freedom is special and rare. It's fragile. It needs protection. So we've got to teach history based not on what's in fashion, but what's important. Teaching what's important. There's a reason President Reagan was known as the great communicator. He could take a big topic like education and really boil it down to its most essential question. Are we teaching what's important? How often, as a nation, do we ask ourselves, are we teaching what's important? As a former classroom teacher, I speak to all the students who are in our audience today when I say, I know you probably spend a fair amount of your time being tested in skills like reading and writing and math, right? If you're a kid, raise your hand. You've had a test at some point in the last week, reading, writing, or math? Just, okay, confirms my suspicion. Same thing I had to go through, right? And if your experience is anything like mine, you're probably tested at the end of every week, every chapter, every unit, and then at the end of the year, you take these high-stakes tests, and then they take your scores from the high-stakes tests and they compare you against your classmates, against the other schools in your district, against the other kids in the state, and against people from all across the country. And when they're done comparing you in that way, then they take your scores and compare them with students in every country from Afghanistan to Zimbabwe. And all these tests and comparisons and statistics and media coverage make these seem very important. And as a teacher and a parent, I will never make the argument that reading and literacy and numeracy are things that are not important. But I will make the argument that there are things that are more important that we can learn. I will make the argument that even more important than these basic skills is what ultimately we do with them. And what we do with these skills is deeply rooted in the concept of character. Because what good is reading about the right thing to do if, when you're faced with a tough decision, you don't have the courage to actually do it? What good is skill in math to an investor who lacks integrity and drains his aging clients of their life savings at a time when they need it most? And what good does it serve to write about something like commitment if we aren't able to honor the commitments we make to our families, our friends, and our country? Teaching what's important. This is something that the Congressional Medal of Honor Foundation does extremely well. Medal of Honor, Lessons of Personal Bravery and Self-Sacrifice, which you just saw a video on, is a character development program that draws on the personal accounts of Medal of Honor recipients, like our guests today, to explore the important concepts of courage, commitment, sacrifice, patriotism, integrity, and citizenship. These are concepts that are vitally important, not just to learn and to test well on, but to ingrain in the very nature of your being. Our guests today embody these principles, and their stories serve as the highest example of what President Reagan described as an informed patriotism. Their stories remind us of what's important, and they remind us of what it means to be an American. On November 14th, 1965, a helicopter pilot was transporting troops to the remote Ladrang Valley. After several routine lifts into the area, the landing zone came under intense enemy fire from the North Vietnamese army. Medevac helicopters were no longer able to safely land and evacuate the wounded. Trying to fly in and land once meant an extreme risk to your life. Over the course of a day, Major Bruce Crandall flew into landing zone X-ray again and again and again, providing much needed ammunition and evacuating 70 wounded men to safety. Having the courage to do what's right, even when it means taking a risk, that's what's important. On April 19th, 1967, the head of a group of pilots that called themselves the Wild Weasels set out to destroy surface-to-air missile sites near heavily defended Hanoi. After destroying 2 SAM sites, one of the Wild Weasels was hit by flak, and the crew forced to eject. Major Leo Thorsness circled the parachutes and began to coordinate the rescue when he spotted a MiG, an enemy fighter, off his left wing. Though his F-105 was not designed for air-to-air combat, he destroyed the MiG. Low on fuel, he left to rendezvous with a tanker, and then quickly returned to the scene to provide cover to the rescue forces that had come in, and encountered 4 more MiG-17s. He was able to damage one and drive the others away. Again, critically low on fuel and out of ammunition, he headed for a tanker. Another pilot in the area was almost out of fuel himself. Thorsness directed him to the refueling tanker and took his F-105 up to 30,000 feet and glided to a runway in Udorn. His tanks went dry as he touched the ground. His willingness to sacrifice his own safety to ensure the safety of others, that's what's important. On the morning of November 9th, 1967, B Troop, under the control of the 3rd Brigade of the 1st Cavalry Division, began to push into an overgrown area near Quai San on a search and destroy mission. They approached a dense hillside which exploded with machine gun and mortar fire. An armored cavalry assault vehicle was hit immediately, wounding nearly all on board. Lieutenant James Taylor rushed through withering enemy fire and pulled each of the wounded to safety only moments before the assault vehicle exploded. A second vehicle was hit. Lieutenant Taylor rushed once again to the aid of the wounded. This time he was injured by a mortar round. Despite his injury, Lieutenant Taylor continued to pull the wounded to safety and to get them aboard medevac helicopters. His commitment to his fellow soldiers, despite the danger in his wounds, that's what's important. So please join me in welcoming to the stage 3 very important men whose stories provide the sorts of lessons that do much to inspire the next generation of citizens and leaders. Medal of Honor recipients Colonel Bruce Crandall, Colonel Leo Thorsness, and Major James Taylor.
Thank you.
So I want to spend as little time as possible asking my question. So I'm just going to open one question. And I know we have about 600 students here who have about 2,000 questions for you. And so I want to spend as much time as we can making sure the students get a chance, a very rare chance to ask questions to you. But my first question, I want to tie it in some ways to the curriculum itself and the education mission of the Congressional Medal of Honor Foundation. And I was wondering if you could tell me just a little bit about why the educational work that you do is so important.
Well, you want me to go first before my senior citizens to my right? Anyway, it's an honor and a privilege to be with you gentlemen today, and ladies, and students of America. We believe that, as T. Boone Pickens stated, the strength of this nation depends on the character of its people. That's what it's all about. That's why we participate in this program, and we'd like to reach every young man and woman in school today to grow up, live your dream. The dream with desire, dedication, and determination. Total commitment. You can bring out that greatness that lies within your stomach. God bless you.
Good job. Good job. Jim said it eloquently, which surprises me because I know Jim. He said it well. And I will echo that. And I think to summarize that, every one of us, but we're talking about students now, every student here, you're better, you're sharper, you're smarter, you're stronger than you think you are. And if we can talk about some values that somehow are embedded in this Medal of Honor, values there are, if we can talk about them and, you know, trigger a spark in your mind or a thought, we think that will help you. And that's our goal. And we believe that you'll end up doing the job that you need to do to continue building America. Your students, you'll learn a lot, and you'll get into the real jobs, the real market world. And if you put just a little bit more than you take out, our country will just go on and on and on. And so we're dependent upon you, and you got it. You just sometimes you don't realize.
Leo shouldn't pick on my friend Jim when I'm coming up next. He's a former Air Force sled driver, and he flew a glider into Thailand. So, when I went to school, I had the advantage of being raised during a lot of that time was during the Second World War. My grandmother and my great uncle lived with us, so that my mother could be a welder in the shipyard. And our whole country was dedicated to fighting the Second World War. That was about 12% of the men went into combat, and the women took their places in the industry. So we had a committed nation. We haven't got that right now. And when I was growing up, we didn't have any locks on our doors. I can't imagine anyone not doing that today. And we would like to see our young folks gain some of the things that we gained when we were young. And we would like to see our society become more patriotic, more interested in the nation. And the young men that are wearing the uniform and young women that wear the uniform today are the best we've ever had. And we would like you that are on the home front to give that service in your communities, and that's the thing that we hope we will be able to instill with our program.
Good job. Good job.
Okay, so we're going to try to navigate here. So we have a couple of members of the Medal of Honor education team who have microphones in the audience. We want to make sure we get some student questions in. If you have a question, if you're a student, and I know one of their concepts is courage, and it might take courage to raise your hand in front of about 800 people and ask a question. I know, having been in middle school, that can be a difficult thing sometimes. But we're going to go to some questions, and do we have a question ready to go over here? Okay, so we have our first question from a student over here. So if you could please tell us your name and what school you're from before your question.
I'm Autumn Moore. I'm from Del Sur Middle School.
Okay, excellent.
This is Talil Thorsness, and I want to know who was the most influential person to you, and how did they affect your military career?
Would you repeat it a little bit more slowly, Mike?
He'll have to repeat.
Oh, sure. So, yeah.
Okay,
So
all right.
the question
Thank
was
you.
about who was the most influential person to you that influenced your military career. Is that right? I get that right?
Collectively, is my family. I grew up on a farm. Mother, dad, sister, and brother. Couldn't have been luckier, and worked hard. Didn't have a lot of money. Nobody else did, and we just had good values and being brought up. Later on, 59 years ago, I lucked out, and she's right over here, and she's influenced me ever since. I married way up, so not being flippant, but those who surround you. If I lucked out, I had a great environment in which to grow, and then I married into that. So I'm blessed. It just was homespun, and it grew and grew and grew. And I was an Eagle Scout, and you join the military and you take all these oaths, but it was how I was brought up that influenced me.
Okay. Do you mind if I ask a follow-up question to that? So one of the things we heard in the video before that Brian Williams was talking about was, he said, I wish that kids would learn these Medal of Honor recipients like baseball players. They would learn their statistics. And you talked a little bit about the idea of role models. If you had advice for the kids in the audience today on where they should look for role models. There's an obvious answer right here on the stage, but what other advice would you give them to in selecting powerful role models?
Is that for my senior over here?
That's for you, and then I'm happy to throw that open to anybody else as well.
Role models are those who do the right thing and help others. That's very basic, but those are the 5 words by which I live. As I was growing up, I became an adult a long time after 18, but it evolved. There were certain people I really respected and some I didn't. And I thought about, finally, why is it I respect those? And those that I respected were those who always seemed to do the right thing. And those 5 words, and help others, they can go together. But I mentioned I was a Boy Scout, and all these oaths and laws and stuff you pass, I'm not smart enough to remember all those things. Geneva Convention, the Code of Conduct, and the oath to uphold the Constitution. We joined the military and Scouts. So I just boiled it all down to those 5 words. Do what's right, help others. If you live by those 5 words, you're going to do well. You'll succeed.
Excellent. Either of you want to chime in on role models?
It really surprises me that he said something right. Great job. Great job. Anyway, I agree with Leo 100%. Make sure you do the right thing. Select the person that's going to guide you down the path of life in the right direction. And it's easy for young Americans today to get off track as they travel down the path of life. Come back on that track, that path of life. Look for someone that's going to lead you down the road and make sure you do the right thing. And Leo, very eloquent, very well. Do the right thing.
Well, I think the role models are your teachers, your family, the people in your community that dedicate their time and service that don't get credit much. A good example is our board members here that give up their time to support us and to give us guidance, as little as it is. No, I really think that you can find a role model that's a lot better than a jock or a movie star. Of course, I wasn't one of those.
Looks like we have another question over there.
My name is Isaac, and I come from Lawrence Middle School. My question is, what president gave you the Medal of Honor, and how do you feel about it?
So the question is, what president did you receive the Medal of Honor from, and then how did you feel about that encounter with the president?
I received my medal from President Johnson. It was a moment in my life that I still don't believe today, because I always say, why me? I was not alone on the field of battle. I had some wonderful men with me, but President Johnson was a great person. I had an opportunity to meet him, and he placed this wonderful medal around my neck. And every time I touch it today, I think about the men that were with me on November the 9th.
In my case, I was a couple of weeks after I flew a mission for which I eventually received the Medal of Honor. It really takes a process, takes a year or two. For Bruce, it took a lot longer. But anyway, I was shot down and I became a prisoner of war. And so I was there 6 years. And the medal was submitted, and the neat thing about the Medal of Honor, it's recommended by your peers. It doesn't start by somebody up there. It's the people you're fighting with, and that's really meaningful. And it goes through the process. And it was approved under President Johnson, and then I was still a prisoner. They didn't know if I was dead or alive. so they didn't give it to my wife, and then I ended up being alive, and so when I came home, there was a new president. I received it from President Nixon. But I think every Medal of Honor recipient, if you ask him specifically, Jim, every one of us knows other people we fought with that were as or more deserving than we, but somehow it fell through the cracks and so on. So we wear this for all those who can't and all those who deserve it, and really, we wear it for the country. We try to represent the values that's embedded the best we can.
I received the medal from President George W. Bush in 2007, and the action took place on the 14th of November, '65. And it was a great honor. I wore my Stetson in there, and the president really liked that. He called it a hat, so I corrected him. But my wingman, Ed Freeman, received the award in 2001 because he was the only volunteer. I was the commander, and I had no other options than to do what I did. And I will assure you that any of you that were in a position like I got into and that had my training and responsibilities would do the same thing. And you men up there in that front row will do that, and you women, because that's what we do.
Good points.
Hi, my name is Audrey Sauter, and I am from St. Pascal Baylon School in Thousand Oaks. My question is to Bruce Candle. Was God always with you, and did you believe you had faith even though you thought you were going to die saving the other men?
Did you hear that? So the question was, did you feel during the actions that led you to receive the medal, did you feel God was with you that entire time because you were in a pretty hairy situation?
Absolutely. I had no fear of dying myself. I knew what I was doing was right, and I knew that it was out of my hands, and it was someone greater than me could take care of me. My concern was that I would screw up in some manner and lose some of my people or make a mistake that would cause the guys on the ground to not survive. So your concern is not about yourself if you have a faith, and I did. So you keep the faith.
I don't want to pass up this opportunity that I one time had a prayer preemptively answered. I'd ejected from an airplane. I was doing about 700 miles an hour. My knees were injured, so I was floating down. I looked down, and I was too close to know I would be either killed or captured when I hit the ground. And there was a little clearing in the jungle down there, so I was 3,000 or 4,000 feet up. I could see muzzle flashes. They were shooting at me in a parachute. It's hard to hide in a parachute. But I was thinking about my family if they would find out what happened to me. But also, what was dominant in mind, it was like there was a little recording in my ear. The helmet was gone, and it kept going over and over. It kept saying, "Leo, you're going to make it. Leo, you're going to make it. Leo." That was very pleasant. I'd never had a prayer preemptively answered before, but faith plays a big part for me in combat and in Hanoi. Important.
Yeah, that's true for all of us. I still live that day to day, and I had that little voice says, Jim, stay cool. Maintain your emotions. Get these people out of here, and you will be all right. I'm behind you. He was behind me.
Good.
I'm Jamie Mitchell, and I'm from the Milliken Middle School Civics Academy, and this is to Bruce Crandall. Would you have joined the Army if you weren't drafted?
Well, I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Would you have joined the Army if you weren't drafted?
Okay, good question, because one of the things from your video, you talk about the draft. And so her question is, would you have joined had you not been drafted?
The answer to that is, I wouldn't have joined. I was in the National Guard from the time I was 15. I lied a little bit about age. But I wouldn't have joined because I was an All-American baseball player, and I wanted to be drafted by the Yankees or the Orioles or even the Cubs. Now, I'd like to go back to that last question for just a moment. I think that all of us have a faith of some kind or other, but I don't think you young folks can rely on prayers to get good grades. I think you ought to work.
Good point.
We got all kinds of hands up.
Excellent. We got some other questions. Okay, looks like we're going over here.
To Mr. Leo K. Thorsness, when the Vietnamese captured and tortured you, what kept you from giving up?
Did you hear that question? So you were captured. You were a prisoner for several years. And so his question was, what kept you from giving up in that situation?
Some of it's pride. I didn't want to fail me. One time I broke during torture, and I was the worst moment of my life. But you come back and muster up your courage and try to resist again the next day. But you don't let even if you're solitary confinement, we had a tap code. We supported each other, and I won't go into it. But sometimes your life depended upon getting the right information and the truthfulness that came out of the person that had been tortured ahead of you, or whatever. And I think it's just that. You are so dedicated to your family, and you hope to see them again. The people you're serving with, you don't want to let them down, and that's in any part of the battle, in any battlefield. So it was, and then you pray to live through it and get home. And I think the faith you have in your fellow man, the faith you have in yourself, and the desire to succeed and to live.
Excellent.
It's pretty basic.
And I also wanted to mention that next month, I believe, is the 40th anniversary of the release of the prisoners of the Hanoi Hilton. Just wanted to mention that before we moved on. Okay, I think we have another question over here, and then we're going to go to a couple of our online questions, because I know we have some schools that are tuning in.
I'm Daniel Sajian from the Milliken Middle School Civics Academy. This is for Leo Thorsness. Did you know anything about the medal before you earned it?
So, did you know anything about the medal before having earned it?
I think everybody in the military understands what the Medal of Honor is. A lot of the private sector does not, because there's there's fewer people in the military now, fewer people in Congress. But yeah, yes, we knew about it. And when I found out I'd been submitted for the Medal of Honor, I'd been in prison a couple of years with the TAP code. Somebody said who had done some investigation on research on was that mission worthy. Then he was later shot down, so he had some information. But it wasn't a big deal to me when I found out I'd been nominated for the Medal of Honor, because you're in prison, times are real tough, and you're going through the prison system. But it was nice to know, but it was not as important as surviving and upholding your honor during those real tough times and supporting your fellow troops in prison.
When I was in the 5th grade, I wrote an article about Audie Murphy, and Mrs. Larson was my English teacher. And when she passed away, her family put that article in a frame and gave it to me. It's very moving.
All right. I want to go to our online audience. We have students from across the country who are tuning in and submitting their questions via texting, and I know that the kids who are here in the audience were able to submit some of the questions earlier. And so the question I'd like to ask, there's a number of great ones. And so one of the questions we got online, and I think that one of the things that if you're a student, we talked earlier about the idea of looking up to role models. In particular, there are situations, especially the three gentlemen who are on stage, who have some wisdom that can share. And so I like this question a lot. So any words of wisdom for coping with difficult situations? So for the students in the audience, the odds that they'll be in a situation similar to the one that you were in is probably not high, but they have their own difficult situation. So how could you kind of take what you learned from being in a life-threatening, a dangerous situation and apply it to the life of the student? So maybe I'll start on the far end of the stage and come this way.
I think the one thing all of us did was fall back on our training and our moral standards and our character, and know that what we were doing is the right thing. And if you have that in a local community, you'll see the police and the fire go into emergency situations because they do it. And I think every one of you has it in you to be that kind of person that will make that kind of decision and will just carry it out because of your character and the fact that you're Americans. And that's our history has been of people who have been able to go further to get things done and to build a country that we have. So I think you would have no problem doing what has to be done. Doctors do it every day in a hospital, and they recover people that we think won't live. So I don't see a problem with responding to an emergency and to a situation that might be critical.
Jim?
Believe in yourself, believe in your fellow man or woman, and believe in your abilities to make it happen. Even though you know in your heart to heart somebody's not going to like the action you take. But do it, have the courage, the moral courage to stand up and be accounted for.
Excellent. And do you think, do you want to add on to that too, Colonel?
Yeah, they said eloquently. Yeah. I think every person is born, I think the day you're born, as you grow enough, your mind starts, you have a moral compass in you. You know right from wrong. Way down deep, you know that. As you get older and you look down the street and some kid's selling drugs down there, he's got a pocket full of $100 bills, he becomes kind of you look, wow. But you know way down deep what's right and wrong. And if you get the courage to run with the right crowd and do what's right, you're going to grow up on the proper side. And I think being a student today, I'm so far removed from being in high school that, our peer pressure there was, should you smoke a cigarette or not and get away with it? That was the drug of the day kind of. So there's so many challenges you're faced with nowadays. But if you got some support behind you, if down deep you say, I know this is the right thing to do or wrong, or drugs or bullying in school or cheating, don't do those things. It's not going to help you in life, and you're just going to grow up a lot better if you can stay on that right track and pick out, the Jim said it before, find somebody that you can lead, somebody that's influenced you that's proper, someone that'll be a model for you. And it's, I don't know how to stress, is sometimes it's so easy to cheat or do the wrong things, but you know down deep it's wrong. And you can do the right things. There's enough in you to do it if you just stick with it.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so another question that comes in from online talks a little bit about the opposition to the Vietnam War in America. And so, in some way, I mean, the way that our Vietnam veterans were treated generally when they returned is, in my opinion, kind of a black mark on American history, the way we treated our veterans. Was there any different treatment of you as recipients of the Medal of Honor? Or do you mind talking about your experience coming home?
Well, I was a career officer. I was one of the senior citizens in Vietnam. I was 30 years old, and I was a career soldier. So when I returned, I went back to my regular duties. I didn't pay any attention to all those demonstrators and those that were protested. I viewed them as the uninformed, and I hate to say this, but I viewed them as the enemy, and I avoided them. However, if I encountered them and they pushed it, I pushed back.
When I came home, I just came out of Hanoi for 6 years, and I'd received the Medal of Honor about the same time. And wherever I went in an audience, if they knew I was there, they'd say, "Oh, we're so proud to have Leo Thorsness here, who is a Medal of Honor recipient and a prisoner of war. Would you please stand?" And I would always say, "And would every Vietnam veteran here please stand?" Because there were a handful of POWs, 350 of us for a long time, then about 600 came home. But it doesn't take a lot of skill to become a POW, right? To survive, maybe, but we received accolades way beyond what we deserved. And the reason is America likes to win. I guess everybody does. America likes to win our wars. We didn't win in Vietnam. Now, we can argue, did we lose, did we break even, but for sure we didn't win in Vietnam. So that handful of POWs, when we came home, we kind of replaced that need for celebrating something. We didn't have victory. And they put all this attention on us, and way more than we deserved. So there was really actually kind of a division between this handful of POWs. And so it was hard to We tried hard to keep that together. But the American veteran, the Vietnam, a typical one, you all know the stories being spit on. They 24 hours after they left the jungle, they were in San Francisco in uniform, and they soon learned to take it off. It was an embarrassment. But fortunately, we learned from that, and we do or don't like the current wars we've been in, but the veteran is highly respected, and that's so good. They're so deserving. So.
Yeah.
When I came home from Vietnam, I did it twice. My family was the one most impacted. My son, my oldest son, was an Eagle Scout and a straight A student. A teacher refused to teach him because his father was a killer in Vietnam. My wife didn't tell me about it till I got out of Seattle, or I had to look that teacher up. We didn't wear our uniforms off post. We didn't go anywhere in uniform that we could keep from going. And today, you see the young men and women in their uniforms going through the airport, and people are patting them on the back and saying thank you. And that's the best thing that could happen to us veterans of the Vietnam era, because we know that they're being respected. And people have figured out it's not the soldier that causes the war. It's the soldier that fights the war. And our families have to be without us. I was married for 54 years to a woman. We had 3 sons, and she said she raised 4 boys. And she was in the service every bit as much as I was. So it was the families that took the heat as far as I was concerned. I could swing if somebody really got me. If somebody spit on me, they would have had a reaction. But she had to, day by day, every day, live with the fact that I was in Vietnam and the threat to me. She knew what was going on. And so she had to live with that, and then she had to live with her husband being a killer. And most of the work I did was to rescue people. I didn't get a real good chance to kill anybody.
I'd just like to make a pitch for the military families today, whenever. As Bruce said, the family, if you're married, that family is just as much in the wife as most cases now. It could be the husband, because there's females and males. But the spouses and the families are part of the military. Without a good support in your family, you're going to be a much less qualified or ready fighting man or woman. To the extreme, why they took it out on our families, I don't know, but the last 3 years, our families were allowed to write a 6-line letter to us once every 6 months in prison, 6-line, once every 2 months. And most of the letters that were sent by my wife and other families, but would come home after about 2 months in the postal system. And on the outside of the envelope is unopened. Stamped in Vietnamese was deceased. Tough. So give as much support to the families as you can, because they're such an important part of our military.
Yeah.
We're going to go back to our live audience, and it looks like we have a question over here.
Hi, I'm Melania from Lawrence Middle School, and out of all those words there, which one would you feel like when you were there?
Which of the values?
Okay. Oh, so which of the 6 values is most important? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay. So of the 6 values that are part of the Medal of Honor character development program, which is the most important to you? Which do you most try to emphasize in your outreach? And why?
Selflessness. Think of others before yourself. Think of others before yourself. And I think you'll be all right. Responsible citizenship is right there. But to me, I strive to think of others before myself.
I think it's hard for me to separate which is the most important, but courage is doing the right thing. It's pretty simple. And if you carry courage to the extreme, it becomes brutality. And there's been examples of that. The selflessness, that's hard to do sometimes, to put others before yourself, because we're into ourselves a lot. The citizenship thing, that kind of summarizes it all. Socrates, I'm old, but I don't remember him personally. It was about 2,400 years ago. He put it real together. He used some different terms, but it's exactly what we're talking about, the six values we're talking about. Socrates said courage, justice, moderation in what you do. Don't do anything in extreme. Truth and wisdom. Those values have been around as long as, if I dropped that glass on the floor right now, you'd all see it drop. And I'd say, what causes it to drop? You'd all say, oh, that was gravity. We can't see gravity, but we know it's there. Those values have been around forever. And deny it or like them or not, they're there. So I think the values that we're talking about are embedded here, the selflessness, the courage, the citizenship, responsibility. Responsibility is key because, in your case, as students, come to work, get to school on time, and be prepared when you get there. And it's pretty simple, but it takes a lot to do that day after day after day. We got this Medal of Honor for one act or a series of acts, and then it was over. But students, you're a student a long time, and to keep being a good student, continue being a good student, that takes a lot of effort. So that's responsibility. But try to do it. It'll make you all better.
That's a darn good question. I would say commitment is the most important thing for all of us to have, and it's commitment to your family, commitment to yourself, commitment to your community, commitment to your brothers and sisters in the service. So if you have the commitment and the moral compass, I don't see how you can go wrong. I believe in citizenship and patriotism and all the others of the six, but I think commitment would be the most important to me.
Thanks for your question. Our next question looks like we have...
My name is Madison Schlender, and I'm from Rosedale Elementary, and this one is for Mr. Bruce Crandall. You have a hat, and there's pins on it. What do those mean?
So she's asking, in your video you wear your hat, the Stetson you wore when you received the medal, and she was wondering what the decorations on the hat stand for.
First off, it's not a hat.
Sorry, Stetson.
It's a Stetson. When I was out waiting in the White House, the senior aide to the president came out and he says, "That's not appropriate." And I says, "Sir?" He says, "The hat's not appropriate." I said, "Stetson, sir. Stetson's not appropriate." And he says, "The Stetson's not appropriate." And I told him, "Well, rest assured, this is not the last inappropriate thing I'm going to do in my life." The decorations on the hat are my rank, my unit, the 1st Cav, and the unit I was in, the 229. So those are what those stood for. And the Cav hat, that Stetson, is always worn by those of us that want to whistle off these other guys.
If he was a true Cav person, he would have his boots on.
and spurs.
My name is Arya Bright from Lawrence Middle School, and my question is, how can a middle school student represent their country?
It's a great question. So, as you served your country, military, so what can a middle school student do to effectively serve their country at that age?
What you can do is you do your homework, you do a good job in school, and you do a community event or two. Feed the homeless. Pick up, some project that you will stand out, and that's an example for the rest of your students. Just do your job, do what's right, help others, and now I'm repeating myself and stumbling, but stand out in some way, and you'll influence other kids, and they're going to say, look at that young man, or young woman, and you can make a difference. Everybody here can make a difference.
Next question. Let's go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Looks like we have another one over here.
Mr. Taylor. I'm Ashley from St. Pascal's, and did you have any doubts before you helped?
So that question was to you, Major Taylor. So in the heat of the moment, did you ever have any doubts before you went on to kind of perform your heroic actions?
No, I didn't. I think that was the advantage I had because I had 10 years of prior service. I had a lot of training. The only thing I could think about is to accomplish the mission and getting the men that were with me out of the situation we were in. I remember flashing by me, and I just said, let the counting begin with me. But I'm going to get these troopers out of here. We're going to accomplish the mission. And we're all going home together. Unfortunately, I didn't have the opportunity to take everybody home. But it was just, it flashes through your mind. It just, you got a mission, you got your men. Your men is foremost in your mind. And I wasn't going to let them down. Because before I left Fort Hood, Texas, I promised the wives and the girlfriends that I would protect and take care of them, and we'd all come home. That was going through my mind. Ready?
Nice. Excellent. Do we have another? Oh, there you are.
Hi, my name is Emma Calvert from St. Mel's School, and my question is, how was your life affected after you received the Medal of Honor?
Okay. Was that to a specific recipient or just in general?
No.
In general? Okay. So the question was the effect the medal had on your life after you received it. How has your life changed? What opportunities? I mean, all sorts of.
Life has changed by being here, for example. Again, there's a whole bunch of people out there as are more deserving, but somehow we end up wearing this Medal of Honor, representing them, but we're invited to things like this. We're treated sometimes special. My wife hasn't found that out yet, but you know, I'm working on it. But it's a true honor. We try to wear it well. Some people have said it's harder to wear than to earn. I don't know if I agree with that or not, but you do try to uphold what it stands for and the dignity of it, so to speak. And we are very fortunate and blessed that we hope we do a good job representing ourselves, the military, our families. And we're happy to be here, but there's others that could be here just as well or better.
Next question. No, that's good.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Next question looks like right there.
My name's Anthony Dugan from Rosedale Elementary, and my question is, what did you do to train for the military? Like, what were some of the activities?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. So in training for the military, because for kids, waking up at 7 in the morning and doing your homework is hard. Maybe some of you could talk about some of your experiences in basic training.
I got drafted and they sent me 12 miles from home to go through basic training. That's not too smart. You learn teamwork. You learn that you've got to work as a team in basic training. You also learn discipline because the NCOs will work on you. My favorite NCO, I don't think he ever slept. He was looking for me all the time. But no, you learn to support others, which I hadn't learned in my normal upbringing. I came from a family with an older sister and a younger brother, but I could pound on my younger brother, but I didn't dare touch my sister. And I don't think any of us that went through basic Army training came out of it the same as we went in. We became much more oriented to the team. And today, these people do that.
Yeah, I was a Mustang, and what that is I had 10 years enlisted service and 14 and a half commission. One thing I will caution you, in your basic training, right off the bat, if somebody says, raise your hand if you have a driver's license, don't do it. I pushed a push lawnmower all around Fort Ord for 2 months. So don't say that.
Yeah, don't volunteer for anything. It's basic.
Never volunteer.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Looks like we have another question in the back there.
Hi, my name is Ben Lezebnik from the Campbell Hall School. And I was wondering, there seems to be sort of a disconnect between the military and civilian society compared to earlier times. How do we fix that? And as civilians, what can we do to help the military?
Excellent. So his question was, he says there seems to be a kind of a disconnect that the military is considered kind of a separate, completely different from civilian entity. And he wonders, what can we do to fix that or to make sure that, or do you agree with that sentiment or do you disagree?
I disagree. I disagree. The military is a career, but all of us will have more than one career now. You young folks are going to have 3 or 4 in order to pay off the debts we're leaving you. But I went from being in the military to being a city manager and then to being a public works manager in a city. And the military, the things I did in the military fit some of that career. We have doctors, we have lawyers, we have all of the things that are in the civilian community. We have uniforms, that's what makes us different. But I don't think that there's that much of a disconnect. I think that we share the same values and we just have a little different uniform.
I think that we talked about the disrespect paid to the veteran after or coming home from Vietnam and so on, but that's been corrected. It's high now, the respect. But I think that there may be a disconnect, but if it is, it's a compliment to the military. If you look at job approval ratings on Congress, used car dealers, the military is rated about as high as any organization in the country. So, and that's very nice to think that we're a veterans board. But so I think if there's a disconnect, it's that we're elevated, maybe more than we deserve even, but it's you're proud to wear the uniform, and hopefully it's deserved this respect they have for it now and the integrity that the military has. It's just fun to be part of it.
Another question.
Hi, my name is Harrison Wass from St. Mel's School. Do you consider yourselves to be war heroes?
So the question is, do you consider yourselves war heroes?
Bruce does. I don't know about the rest.
No, let me just answer it very short. No. My heroes are the men and women that served their country and didn't have the opportunity to come home, to marry their childhood sweetheart. They are my heroes. They gave the ultimate sacrifice, their lives, for their country. They're my heroes.
Agree. The heroes are the ones that are on the Vietnam Wall. You've all seen that, 60,000 people or so. They paid the full price. So they're heroes.
Yeah. If you think you're a hero, just go home and your wife will straighten it out.
Hi, I'm Brian Brownlee from Royal High School, and I would like to ask you, I'm an Eagle Scout myself, so I'd like to know, what are your thoughts on programs like Scouting, teaching the youth of America about patriotism?
Excellent. So he's an Eagle Scout, and he's asking, so kind of in line with what this program does, teaching character, what do you think about different organizations that teach the concept of patriotism?
We'll let our Eagle talk.
Well, as an Eagle Scout, I think that I don't think there's any organization for young people better than Boy Scouts. Now, if I were a female, I could probably say better than Girl Scouts. But that's a phenomenally good program. And when I was in Hanoi, well, no, that's going off the wrong direction. When I was in Hanoi, one time we decided with the TAP code, how do you kill time? It took about 2 weeks to get about 2 or 3 buildings. The TAP code was, how many Eagle Scouts? And out of 120 of us, there were 5. And we were all scruffy old guys, pajamas, being all the same treatment. And when they found out who the 5 Eagle Scouts were, they said, really? You're an Eagle Scout? It's a big deal. But that's not answering the question. Was it other organizations that teach the same kinds of things?
Yeah, do you think it's valuable for
Of course I do.
organizations?
Yeah, anything that teaches character is valuable. And hopefully we're trying to supplement that today.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. We have another question here, and then we'll probably have enough time for maybe 2 more questions after that.
Hi, my name is Danielle Wilkes, and I go to Rosedale Elementary School. My question is for Bruce P. Crandall, and it's what made him want to go out there and save the injured soldiers instead of just like abandoning them and running away and
Okay, so what was it that compelled you to kind of continue to go back and rescue these injured soldiers?
It was my responsibility as far as I was concerned. I couldn't have done anything else. My wingman and I flew 14 and a half hours that day, and we went in there 22 times. And someone asked if there was any doubt. The pucker factor kept getting higher as it went on. But no, you don't think about quitting if you've got all those wounded guys on the ground. And we took in enough ammo that it took a Chinooks to take it back out 2 days later. But to get the wounded out was the key for most of the flights. And you're not going to leave people on the ground. You have to live with that if you do it. And I couldn't have done that.
Good answer.
Yeah, never quit. Never give up. Charge ahead because you know it's the right thing to do. Never quit. Anything you do in life, you're going to run into an obstacle, one way or the other. Jump over it, go around it, whatever you have to do, but never quit.
When my backseater was a guy named Harry Johnson. He was a navigator, electronic guy. And after we went in and we ran out of fuel, came out, hoped to get some other airplanes to help us. And there weren't any at that time. And so I said to Harry, I think we got to go back in. What do you think? Because he's with me and I'm the boss of that airplane. He said, he repeated an old Jewish phrase. It goes back a few hundred years. If not us, who? If not now, when? We had no choice. I mean, it's not original, but it's still as good today. They've just said it. You know, if not us, not when, now when. So you have no choice in a situation like that. You got to do your job, and that is our job.
Excellent, thank you. And all right, so you, young man, have the wonderful distinction of having our final question today. So it's going to be a great one.
Hi, my name is Ethan. I'm from Lawrence Middle School. My question is, what did you learn in boot camp that could help my brother because he's going to the Marines?
I'm sorry, could you repeat one more time? It sounded like a good question, but it sounded like one more.
What did you learn in boot camp that could help my brother because he's going to the Marines?
Okay, so he's got an older brother going into the Marines. So any advice for somebody about to enter into the armed services?
Go Army.
As a biased Air Force fighter pilot, I'd say he's making the right decision. Now, those Marines are so good and they're so tough, they're so disciplined. You know, it's just a phenomenally good branch of service, as they all are. But he's going to be a much better person a year from now than he is right now. He's going to learn a lot.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what branch of service you go into. We're all one team. Whatever uniform you wear, we're one team. We're there to do a mission. We're there to accomplish whatever our great country gives us, regardless of what uniform you wear. So,
I still think every year beat Navy, so.
All right. And I want my final question to you comes from, so we've asked the students in the audience and the students online, which of the 6 concepts they'd really like to hear you reflect on. And so I think that's a good way to end our chat here today. And if you take a look, you can see it up on the board there. But of the 6 different ones, the students were fascinated by the idea of sacrifice. It was far and away the winner. And so as our final question, I'd like you to reflect a little bit about the idea of sacrifice as it pertains to your experience, as it pertains to the program.
Well, when you sacrifice yourself for others, there's nothing better. There's no greater gift than you can give to your human man or woman. And you don't go into that situation thinking that, okay, I'm going to get my name in the paper or I'm going to receive a medal. Think about the fireman that busts down the door of a house that's burning down. Why did he do that? Why did she do that? He was, or she was willing to sacrifice her life to save somebody that was inside that house.
Excellent.
Bruce.
You notice how we always point at each other. We've known each other for over 40 years, and we're family. I love this guy dearly. I love Gailey a little bit more. But
I didn't know that.
Well, I'm waiting for Gailey to find out his good, things about him that he thinks she's going to find out. I was amazed by these numbers because I thought there'd be more in the courage and patriotism areas than there was, but not as much as in sacrifice. And if you mean sacrifice by that, you give up your time to do better things in the community. If you mean sacrifice that you visit the wounded warriors, which I advocate, I encourage everyone that hears my voice to go and do that. Visit with the wounded warriors and their families. But if you mean sacrifice by just giving $1 here and $1 there, that's not sacrifice. That's donation. You can't buy your way into heaven by giving away money. So if you're thinking that way, give it to me. I'm lying.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised at that also, but if that's what they think, that's the right choice to rank on top. But sacrifice is something that you don't think about a lot. If you're sacrificing yourself to save someone else, if you're sacrificing your time, your effort, just like Bruce said, you visit people. But I do know that if you sacrifice, however you qualify it or define it, it makes you feel good inside. If you sacrifice yourself for someone else in small ways, big ways, you're a bigger person. And there's happiness and then there's joy. And happiness is you go ride on some roller coasters. It's things you do that make you happy. But joy is an internal thing. And joy just builds you up inside. You're a taller person when you sacrifice.
Well, on behalf of the Reagan Foundation and the students and the teachers who are here today, thank you so much for coming today to share your stories and all the work you do educating and instilling students with concepts like patriotism and citizenship and courage and sacrifice. So thank you so much.
Thank you. You did a good job.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so we're gonna, thank you. So, if I could ask our audience to please remain seated. Our recipients are going to make their way upstairs. They're going to be signing copies of the Medal of Honor book if you'd like to do that. I know there's a line that's queuing up outside of the museum store. For all of our students, Beth Hickman from our team is going to come up and dismiss you. Some of you are heading back to your buses, some of you to the museum. So other than that, thank you so much for coming out today and have a great rest of your day.